Everyone, this is Nikki and I'm so glad to have you back on my channel. I'm showing you a couple of pictures of the cards. We're going to look at two different ways to use layered stamps that are a little different than your usual. I'm going to do this orange cream right here, and then I'm going to use an ink pad of fuchsia. I'm going to start, so this is going to be my lighter color flower. This is not the flower that's going to be on my card that I've previewed because I haven't made a card for this one yet. But this one I'm going to make the center. I'm using an ink blender and I'm adding it to the center, adding the color to the center. And then I'm going to take this fuchsia color and add it to the outside. This makes a very light impression, but it can give you some really cool details. So I'm pulling my color in on my stamp here towards the middle, and you'll see what this does. It makes the outside of it darker. So just so you know, I will include links to all of these products in the description so you don't have to keep up. I would love it if you'd hit the like and subscribe button if you hadn't done that yet. And here, check out this image. So it's a very light image, but I'm going to go back and do this a couple of times to make sure I get my image solid, adding the orange cream in the middle and then the fuchsia on the outside, and just making this a little bit darker. And I'll show you how this ends up. And this is just the first layer of the stamp. So I'm only using that background layer of the stamp right now. I think it looks really cool this way, or you could add an outline to it, but we got several options. The stamp that I'm using today is Beautiful Day. So with this image, I'm going to add just a little bit more around the pink outside edges, and that's just in case I don't want to use an outline stamp. I can make sure I've got a real defined edge to those pink petals. So I'm just dipping this in that fuchsia, using the little blending tool and going around again. You can see I made that a little bit darker around the edge. Very cool look to this flower already. You could do so many things. Part of the orange I wanted to fill in just a little bit, so I just took my brush and added some. Go back and forth between this light flower and the darker version. So my second technique we're going to do on the top of this paper. So for my second technique, I'm going to take the stamp pad directly to the stamp. So I've washed this off. I'm going to put it up here in this corner so I can die cut these later. And then we're going to take our stamps, our ink, directly to our stamp. So I'm using the orange cream again. It's a little harder with this larger pad, so you can always kind of wipe some areas off. And then the smaller ink cubes kind of work better, but I just don't have those in the orange. So I'm doing these around the edges in fuchsia. And you're gonna see lines and such because I'm kind of swiping it on, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to see some different kinds of detail like that. So I'll show you how dark this is just on its first layer. Look at how dark this is on its first layer. You can see all those little lines and dots and things like that. And I really like that look. I think it gives it a nice artsy look. And that's what I'm going for with this flower. Now we're going to do our second layer. And so I'm going to put this back on my stamp set. And you can see the next layer has more detail than the last layer, so we know it's going to have some dark areas into it. So we're going to start it on this first flower that's our lighter flower. So the first time that I tried this, I think, okay, I'm going to go back with those same colors and I'm going to do some more ink blending on them so that they will still show up. So it's still another layer of that color. But what I realize is this is just not dark enough. So I end up taking my stamp pad to the stamp to get more ink on it, and then using my blending brush to calm it down and make it softer. So for this part, because I'm trying to see what I think about the color, I just did the pink part, and then I'm going to go back in with my orange stamp pad and add some more. I do like to kind of brush it on like that just to make sure I get good coverage everywhere. Now I'm going to go with the orange pad and I'm going to brush that right in the middle. Like I said, an ink cube of this would probably work a little bit better. So I'm trying to just add it here. I'm afraid I'm going to get too much of my orange if I don't add it with the little dauber here. So I'm going to use this brush, brush it on, and then stamp. The first time that I do it, you can't really tell a huge difference, but I'm going to do it twice, and the second one really does give it some good detail. So there is detail there. It's hard to see, but watch when I add just a little bit more orange. So I'm kind of blending my colors to this orange and kind of fuchsia-y color. They look really good together, and they make some interesting colors when they blend as well. So I like how it almost looks like a sunset right there. So I decided we're going to go ahead and do the third layer of this light colored flower and see what we think. So this would be, in the way that I'm doing it, the darkest layer that I'm doing. So I'm going to add fuchsia to the outside, add orange to the inside. I'm starting with orange because it's got a lot of detail in that orange and I want to make sure it shows up. So I'm going to do it a couple of times with my brush, still adding orange cream. That's the color that we're using. And then once I get as much detail as I want right there in the middle, then I'm going to go and add my fuchsia. So look at how this detail looks. Okay, here's that last bit of detail. So it looks really good. It is a cool looking effect, but I know the one up on the top looks messy, but just wait. I'm going to show you what I did with just ink pads directly to the stamp on this next one. So let's do our second layer on that top one there. And you see I'm going directly here, adding my color with the ink pads. Like I said, a little easier to do with this little mini ink cube. And just trying to make sure I've got it covering this whole stamp. So I'm doing that real quick. And then we're going to add that layer to the second one. I am going to dot just a little bit because I had some real obvious lines in certain places, so I did dot it a little bit with this, but I'm trying not to take off much of the color. Looks so good. I love that bright flower, especially for this contest where we're trying to do color schemes. I just love the bright colors. Summertime makes me love bright colors, I guess. And so now I'm going to add to the middle of the flower and the outside, and I'm doing some with a brush, and then I'm going to go in and add a little bit more, and that's just because this has a lot of detail, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting all the detail. So I did make sure I covered everything with the orange, and then I'm going to go back in and touch with that orange cream again. I used just barely on this outside fuchsia just to keep the lines down a little bit, and then I'm going to touch in the middle with that orange and try to really get the little middle of the flower to show up. So adding a little bit here, and then I'll show you what it looks like stamped. Here's the first stamp, and I didn't feel like that had quite enough detail, so I did it one more time. I think it looks really good. Let me show you. So look at all those details. Yes, you can see lines in the flower. I really like it that way. I also love the pastel version. So I'm going to use the dark ones for the card that I'm making today, but I'm definitely saving my pastel for later. I decided I wanted a little bit more detail, so I took the outline stamp and I'm using the two darker colors in the set. So the darker orange is Autumn Blaze, and that's the middle of this flower, and the darker outline for fuchsia is called Magenta, and so I used those just to give it a little bit more detail. I really love adding the detail to these flowers, and Altenew has such great sets that do that. So I did the outline stamp to this, and I'll show you what else I did just to add a little bit more depth to my flower. All right, so I grabbed some of my Faber-Castell POLYCHROMOS, hopefully that's how you say that, and I grabbed some orange colors and I grabbed some of the fuchsia type colors. So I had a pack of these from, I believe Simon Says Stamp, that's like a 36 pack, so I just grabbed my closest colors. And the reason I'm doing this is, one, because I love the way it looks. Two, I think it helps fade my colors a little bit better, and it really enhances, you know, I told you these have lines in them from where I was stamping, and I really kind of liked that. So I'm enhancing that. I'm enhancing the shadows a little bit with these colors. This is just for fun. You could completely leave it the other way if you wanted to. I am going to speed up this process and just kind of show you where I added highlights. So let me review with you real quick. So the two techniques that we used a blending brush to apply the ink to our stamp. That gave us that much lighter flower up there. And then we also went direct to the stamp with are ink pads. Occasionally I would use a blending brush just to soften something out if I got too many lines, but for the most part, that's the difference in these two flowers. They're the exact same ink colors, it's just how I applied it to the stamp. So I'm adding these highlights. If you have seen this video and you've gotten what you needed out of it, make sure to go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button and look at the description for any of the details on products that I used, but also make sure that you go through the link up at the top if you're interested in any further videos. I'm going to link a couple up in the what's called the card up in the top right corner of this video. So check that out if you'd like to. I'm going to speed through the rest of the process, and for anybody who's interested in seeing the entire card, we'll do that. So here's this final part. I'm just adding little details with my POLYCHROMOS pencils. And now I'm going to cut these out, do the leaves, and move to the background. The outline of the leaves was Forest Glades, which is my darker leaf color. And then the interior is going to be Frayed leaf, and I'm going direct to the stamp, and then I'm going to use my blender on it. So I'm keeping these a little bit softer, plus the leaves only have a couple layering, so we'll do the frayed leaf as the background, and the outline, like I said, was Forest Glades. Here's how frayed leaf looks, and then for our second layer of the leaves, which is the last layer, I went direct to the stamp and used my blending brush, but I used the outline color, which is called Forest Glades. And I stamped this twice, so I added a little bit more ink, did it again, and here's what it looks like. So now it's to the little details. I love to add splatter effect to my backgrounds and to my flowers, and so I'm going to use this Altenew metallic watercolor in gold. I love that for gold splatter, and it doesn't take a whole lot, so I'm going to use the gold color, splatter it on this and the leaves, and then I'm also going to splatter some of the fuchsia and the orange cream on the white background. Here's the super fine splatter on the leaves. Really hard to see, but in person you can see those little gold flecks, and it looks really cool. So I got the background ready. That is an embossing folder from Altenew. It'll be linked in the description. And then I placed my flowers. I put a little bit of gold metallic thread. And like I said, I put splatters on this background as well. So I'm going to get all these together and then decide on my sentiment. So since this was an out-of-the-box, unusual way for me to do a card and something new I was trying, I decided I'd put my sentiment in a different place. A lot of times I put this out in just kind of your traditional location, but I really liked it right here in the center of the flowers. I just thought it drew your attention to those flowers. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this. I'm so glad to have you here. Check out some other videos. Make sure you click on those, and if you haven't done it yet, hit like and subscribe. That helps me out so much. All the links will be in the description, and those do give me a small commission. So if you go through those, I would appreciate it so much. I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Happy crafting. See you soon. Bye.